There comes a moment in every person's life, quiet or violent, when the mask is ripped off, when the identity you built, the one you protected, the one you believed would shield you from pain, shatters. And in that shattering, something ancient, something eternal stirs from within. We spend our lives building monuments to the ego. We decorate them with titles, status, validation, applause. We stand proudly at the center of our own kingdoms, mistaking control for purpose and visibility for value. But God does not anoint the proud. He does not speak to the voice that shouts over others or the mind that clings to image. He whispers to the broken. He calls from the ruins, because before God can use a man, he must empty him. Not out of cruelty, but out of mercy. Because what you call breaking, God calls becoming. What you call loss, he calls alignment. He is not destroying you. He is destroying what was never truly you. Look at the greats. Look at those who touched eternity. Abraham was asked to sacrifice his only son. Moses was exiled into the wilderness before he ever led a nation. Joseph was betrayed, sold, imprisoned, forgotten before he was ever crowned. Jesus himself was ridiculed, beaten, and crucified before he was glorified. Why? Because to carry divine purpose, you must be emptied of the worldly self. The ego cannot sit on the throne if the soul is to lead. And so God breaks you not to bury you, but to resurrect the version of you that can carry the weight of what he has planned. He crushes your pride so that humility can be born. He silences your plans so that vision can be restored. He removes the audience so that your integrity can be tested in the dark. And that hurts. It hurts to lose what you once idolized. It hurts to be stripped of identity, certainty, and control. It feels like death, because in a way it is the death of self, the death of who you thought you had to be in order to be worthy. But the soul cannot be destroyed. It can only be revealed. You were not created for applause. You were created for impact, and real impact begins in surrender. See, ego fights, ego clings, ego argues, but the soul listens. It yields. It follows the quiet pull toward purpose, and purpose never needs to shout. It knows who sent it. You've been lied to, told that success is about domination, that greatness comes from being seen. But the greatest people who ever lived walked through hell quietly. They were tested in private before they were trusted in public. Ego says, look at me. But the soul says, use me. And when God hears that, when he sees a man or woman drop their need to be the hero, drop their obsession with credit, drop their desperation for validation, he moves, he lifts, he builds through that surrendered vessel. But make no mistake, that surrender doesn't happen in comfort. It doesn't happen at the top of the mountain. It happens in the pit, in the darkness, in the seasons where nothing makes sense and every plan falls apart. You may call it a setback. He calls it the classroom. You may call it failure. He calls it foundation, because what he builds to last. Temporary confidence built on ego will always collapse, but eternal strength built on character, that endures storms. Thomas Edison failed 10,000 times in the dark before the world ever saw light. Carnegie shoveled coal with blistered hands before he ever wrote checks that changed history. Lincoln lost elections, faced heartbreak, battled depression before leading a divided nation. None of these men were strangers to breaking, because greatness doesn't come from what you avoid. It comes from what you survive and what you become in the process. God is not interested in preserving your comfort. He is interested in awakening your soul. He is not interested in leaving you where you are. He is interested in who you were created to become. And if that requires stripping you of everything that props up your ego, so be it. Better to be stripped and rebuilt by heaven than praised and propped up by illusions. You're not being punished. You're being prepared. Prepared for something heavier than your image. Prepared for something holier than your ambition, prepared for a life so rooted in truth that storms don't shake it, failure doesn't break it, and praise doesn't inflate it. But to reach that place, you must let go. Let go of the idea that your worth is measured by what you produce. Let go of the need to control how people see you. Let go of the fear that if you stop striving, you'll stop mattering. Let go so God can move in. You see, your soul has always known the truth. It has always known that the applause fades, that the achievements don't fill the void, that beneath every goal was the desire to be seen, not by the world, but by God. And the moment you stop chasing the world, the moment you fall to your knees, when all you have left is your breath and your belief, that's when the real work begins. Not the work of the hands, but the work of becoming, the soul work, the holy fire that refines, reshapes, rebuilds. And when you rise from that fire, you will not be who you were. You will not want what you wanted. You will not speak how you used to speak, because you will no longer be driven by ego. You will be guided by calling. And that calling won't always make sense. It won't always look impressive, but it will be right. It will burn with conviction. It will stretch your faith and sharpen your focus. Because now you walk with God, not just toward Him. Now you serve, not to be praised, but because you were chosen. Now you build, not to prove, but because you were prepared. Now you rise, not by force, but by faith. And people won't always understand it. They'll say you've changed. They'll say you've lost your edge. Let them, because they didn't see the night you broke. They didn't hear the silence you sat in. They didn't feel the weight God placed in your spirit. This isn't about them. It never was. It's about alignment. You were never called to climb ladders. You were called to move mountains. You were never called to fit in. You were called to be set apart. And sometimes the only way to be set apart is to be broken apart. So if you find yourself in a season of breaking, if you feel like everything you once leaned on has collapsed, don't run, don't numb, don't hide, lean in. Ask the deeper question: what is God removing so that He can reveal? What is dying so that something truer can be born? Because He's not trying to destroy you. He's trying to awaken you. And when the ego dies, when the mask finally falls, when all that's left is raw truth and real faith, you will be more powerful than you've ever been. Not because you have more, but because you've become more. Because you now live from the soul, unshaken, unmoved, unstoppable. That is who God can use.